Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Michael and Patty Show, coming to you live from the Charlottetown waterfront. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning. Live and recorded by the time they get to hear it, but it is an absolutely beautiful day. We're in the last couple days of November 2025, and it's been actually a really, really nice fall we've had here on Prince Edward Island.
And we hit 0 degrees today, which feels like it's minus 20 Celsius.
It doesn't feel that cold, but
It feels very cold. We're going to have to get rid of the sports shoes and the running shoes and put some warm socks on for today. So we're actually recording this on a Saturday rather than a Sunday. Sunday, we usually just have something quick at McDonald's. This morning, we went to our mastermind group, which is hosted at Joel's Restaurant, as we call it. If you're looking for a great breakfast restaurant, check out Pure and Simple. It's located behind the mall, the West Royalty Mall. It is absolutely wonderful. He's done a great job there. I think we've gone there 4 weeks in a row now.
yeah, it's at the Royalty Crossing. There's no access to the restaurant inside the mall, so if you are there looking for it, you'll wonder what we're talking about. So you just have to go to the back side where the access to the brick and that is, and you'll be able to see it. And great customer service, great food, great portions. It's been a nice experience.
So if you're looking for Charlottetown's best breakfast, Pure and Simple at the mall. And we're going to talk about somebody else we discovered this week, as you had a challenge that someone was nice enough to leave half of her house behind and you needed to move everything out into a storage locker. And it's not easy finding someone to show up within 24 hours and help you with that. So we've discovered somebody new here. I believe he's just started this business recently. He's absolutely awesome. His name is Sam. And what's the company name?
So it's Sam Carrier. He's the owner of Big Load Moving. This company was established in 2023. And you got to meet them personally. I got to speak to them on the phone. They were short notice, very friendly, courteous on the phone, and I guess you've had the equal experience when you showed up. So if you're interested in finding out more, you could always send us a message, or are you going to provide their number?
I'll just give the URL. It's bigloadmoving.com, and they are absolutely awesome. And they said something that was really interesting. They said that during COVID, they had 10 shipments coming from Ontario for every shipment they had leaving the province.
Wow.
Which I thought was pretty cool. Today we're going to talk about an exciting topic I don't think we've ever covered before, and it came up as usual through our business and somebody purchasing a mini home. So we're going to talk today, or you're going to talk today, because you're the expert on this, on mini homes and pad sites. First, we can probably define what a pad site is. You want to go ahead and do that?
So a pad is when there's somebody that owns a piece of land. They've obviously received approval to lease out a little piece of that, and it's usually called a trailer park. Mostly you'll find them in a city center. It's just an opportunity for affordable housing, usually, for somebody to get into the market. It's great for a first-time home buyer because the mini home that is parked on one of these pads then is obviously a lot cheaper in many cases than actually buying a house on its own land. Most times, pad fees are reasonable and they reflect the area, the accessibility, the amenities close by. So those are things that could trigger or impact and affect what you could expect to pay for pad fees. Plus, a lot of times they will include water and service because there is an owner registered with the province or the city.
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer, yes. And so that is also or should be also incorporated or included. Now, I'm not sure if there's something you wanted to insert there before I went down another.
Well, a couple of things. Number one is, if you're buying a mini home or a mobile home or whatever you want to call it, a trailer, a lot of times people are doing this based on economics. So, for instance, in a particular market we're thinking of, your typical family home would be what, $450 minimum?
A family home, well, we're looking average prices on Prince Edward Island.
No, we're talking this other hypothetical market.
Oh, the other hypothetical market.
It's a
How about
major center in
450?
Canada. I don't want to get into the name, but you're looking about $450 for a house, but you can buy a mini home for under $100,000.
Yes, an older mini home.
Of course. The challenge being is when you buy this mini home or trailer, you're renting a site. It's a pad site. So the pad sites typically, from what I've seen, are usually just gravel or dirt. In some cases, I assume, I know down in the States, some of the higher end parks do have cement pads. That's why I refer to it as a pad. But it's basically a lot that you're paying rent for. And these lots typically in the past were about $100 a month. And then they're $200 a month. And now they're $700 or $800 a month. So you're paying an awful lot of rent. But my biggest concern and why we're bringing up this issue today is, number one, when you make your purchase and sale agreement, you should have a provision in there that you can have an acceptable agreement arranged with the mini home park owner to lease that pad site out. The other concern that I have, and Patty can address both of these, is what happens if you buy this mini home for $80,000, you move in there, you rent the pad out for a year, and then all of a sudden, and this is happening everywhere across North America, the park owner decides to sell the park off or develop it into houses or townhouses or single-family rental units. Now you've got a mini home that you've paid a premium for because of its location, and now you've removed the most important components of real estate. What are the three most important things when you're buying real estate?
It's location, location, location.
So your $75,000 or $80,000 mini home, which you bought on the premise that it was in a great location, now could be worth $5,000 or $10,000 as a to-be-moved structure if it even has the structural integrity to be lifted without it collapsing. You buy a 40 or 50, 60-year-old mini home, it may not have the structural integrity. And of course, the other thing is, if this thing's located in the middle of a city center, how do you get it out or to another site that conceivably is probably going to be in the country? And what's that going to cost?
Yes, and that's exactly where I was going to end up going is so when you're negotiating the contract agreement for one of these mini homes, you are in agreement to paying maybe perhaps a premium price for the mini because of the premium location of the trailer park that you're agreeing to buy into. So it is something that you have to be mindful of, and perhaps, again, a seller can ask whatever they want, but as a buyer, you need to be very mindful. What is this mini home actually worth, and how much security do you have in the trailer park? We discussed earlier this morning, Michael, you were recommending maybe perhaps somebody should look at a minimum 5-year lease agreement for the pad just to protect the buyer's investment into this mini home so that they know if they stay there for a couple years, they may still stand a chance to get out and sell that mini home at a premium price versus, getting into this trailer park and then finding out, because you've only signed a year lease, you have to be moving out or relocating that mini home, which may or may not be possible, as you've already covered. So that's one thing that you have to be very mindful of. The other thing that you pointed out that I was going to address was with regards to the offer, where most offers and most agents will just say to you, look at getting park approval, but they miss the fact that what if the park approves you and they've doubled the rent fees? Legally, they may or may not be allowed to do that, but you're kind of strapped now because I didn't have a condition or provision within the contract agreement that allowed me to negotiate an acceptable pad or lease fee. You don't know whether or not going forward, is this park owner going to allow you to keep the deck or keep the shed? They may come in and say all of that has to go, and now you're the one stuck trying to find some funds to remove these items, to satisfy the park owner. You're terrified you're going to get evicted. And we have seen scenarios across on PEI over the years where a park has decided, or the park owner, they would make more money if they got rid of all the trailers, gave everybody, was it 6 months notice? And you had a lot of people who'd been there 20, 30, 40 years, and now they were finding themselves in a really bad situation because they didn't save money to go and buy a piece of land to move, if it could be moved, their mini home to.
In this particular situation, the owner of the park probably knew for years that they're going to develop it into multifamily townhouses or whatever the case may have been. But what they did is they sent out a letter one day telling the people that own the mini homes in the park, you've got 6 months to relocate your trailer. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
I think there's even a little happy face on the bottom of the letter just to make it even more comedic. But that actually did happen. So keep in mind when you're buying a mini home or whatever you'd like to call it, your value is in the lease of that pad site. And the other thing that I would do, particularly if you find that there's a bunch of these units for sale in the same park, is, and I recommend this to anyone moving anywhere they don't know anything about, is knock on all the neighbors' doors and ask them about the neighborhood, or why is this owner selling, or does the developer have any plans? Have you heard about anything happening?
Yeah, find out what's going on and coming down the pipeline, because all you're doing as a buyer is trusting your realtor, trusting the listing agent, and they're trying to provide a service to their seller. They may or may not be well informed as to what might be coming down the pipeline or what future development conversations are going on. So great opportunity to do some door knocking, introduce yourself and just say, look, I'm interested in this trailer park. Just curious what your rental fees are, as well as
crime rate.
Crime rate. Do you know
noise,
anything?
Parties. And when's the best time to show up to a trailer park to see what it's really like? And I learned this when I was just little Mikey in real estate business.
Probably a Friday or Saturday night.
Yes. I remember I listed a mini home and I thought, this is just a lovely park. It's nice, it's quiet, it's serene, it's secluded. Why wouldn't anyone want to live in this paradise? Until such time as I had to show it on a Saturday morning, and it was a circus.
Saturday morning even.
Yes, there was cars everywhere because people had friends sleeping over. There was parties going on. There was kids everywhere. It was just nuts. It was interesting. And this applies to subdivisions. I was in a subdivision yesterday, just going down a rabbit trail, the one you know of, and there's one road in and out. And I'm thinking, and then there's another subdivision across the street, and there's one road in and out, and they both face each other on this main road to go out. Imagine what that would be like at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Very, very busy.
So if you're checking out a mini home park, you're checking out a neighborhood that has controlled access, go during rush hour, go late on a Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, see what's happening, do your research. Knock on doors, maybe Google the trailer park name because it would say, whoever the developer or owner is seeking permutation. Maybe there's permits applied for.
Or to
rezone.
Any civil or any issues. Did anyone file a complaint against that particular, like the park owner? So there's a whole bunch of things that you could and should do when you're deciding, especially it's a lot of either first-time home owners or maybe somebody looking to retire and they just want to have still their own sense of pride and space, but they want everything on one level and they want just something very simple. You should still do your due diligence.
Yeah, it's not to overcover many homes, but it's something we haven't really talked about before. And I think it's probably more important than many topics because typically these are first-time home buyers that may have saved up the deposit or the down payment to buy their first home for many years. So moving along, this kind of ties in with what we just said. Real estate agents are paid to have an opinion. Does that make sense?
100%.
So if I'm hiring a real estate agent, I want an expert, and we've defined an expert as someone having 10,000 hours of experience, which would equate to 5 full-time years in the Prince Edward Island real estate market, whatever market you're in, and done 1,000 transactions. But what I'm looking for a chatty Cathy, somebody like you, Patty. Someone
Right.
that can tell me absolutely everything there is to know about this location, good, bad, and indifferent. What I don't want, and I ran into this, I think it was one of the first showings I had when I entered real estate, is the agent just told me, oh, this house, it's just wonderful, it's beautiful, there's rainbows coming out of every room. And when I went through the house, I thought, this agent obviously is delusional because this house is horrible and everything's purple. But I don't want to deal with that agent. I want an agent that puts my interests above the commission check. And I don't want to be sold on a trailer park or a neighborhood or a part of town. I want to know the pluses and minuses. I'm paying that agent to have an opinion.
Yes, and you don't want to, what was key in what you just said, Michael, is you don't want someone to sell you the house. The house will sell itself. Allow the buyer to go through and experience the house for what it is. That buyer will make a decision. So if you're a realtor listening to this, you might want to shut up sometimes and not try to overemphasize or oversell a property like a house, because the house will sell itself. It'll either suit the person's needs or don't suit their needs going forward. Just a good point.
I'm always thinking when I sell people a property or write the purchase and sale, show the property, whatever way you want to phrase it based on what you said, I'm thinking that these people could be back in 2 or 3 years if their life circumstances change, which a lot of times they do. And I ask myself, can I sell this house? And if I can't, I'm going to tell them. If they decide to still go ahead with the purchase, that's up to them.
Yeah, well, we're getting into now reverse CMAs to make sure what's the
No, we're not
property
getting
going to
into
be.
reverse CMAs.
Well, what's the value of it? Can I sell it going forward at the price that they may be considering purchasing it for? And that's kind of what you're saying.
Well, reverse CMA, just to define that, is basically you're putting a value based on sales data as to what that property is worth today. So if they do decide to go ahead and purchase, they're purchasing on actual facts and data opposed to conjecture or emotion.
Yeah, or is price set by a seller or the seller's realtor, which may be inflated. I just came across a property this week where 2 years ago they paid, just for an example, $100,000, and these numbers aren't too far off, and they've got it listed just 18 months later for $250,000, and they've not done anything. In fact, the house now, there's warnings not to even go to this house. So it's not safe. You just need to know that any buyer, if they don't do their due diligence, sorry, just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Check the history, find out what they paid, find out what they put into it.
What kind of warnings? Am I going to fall through the floor or something?
It sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Like that property you had years ago that you
Yep.
got an offer of 40 grand on and they turned it down. They are from Ontario. They thought they were sitting on the Queen's Palace and eventually the house collapsed.
Yes, and I told every realtor not to go into the house, and a realtor chose not to listen to me. They went into the house, they allowed their client to go in first and them second, and guess whose leg fell through the floor?
The real estate agent.
Actually, both the clients and the agents. They were on really shaky ground.
And it's not just that, it's the mold and the quality of the air there, or the lack thereof. Like, you don't know what you're breathing either, because that house was black with mold too.
Yeah, they went through, just a foot went through the floor, and then the agent called me up and attempted to tear a strip off me, and I made sure it wasn't just a verbal conversation when I do give a warning like this. I also sent it in a text message saying, do not go into this house because it is structurally compromised. Anyways, I just something to be mindful of. Do your due diligence, because we're just talking about, again, a reverse CMA, making sure you're not overpaying so that you can come in, Michael, in a few years and sell it.
And I think we've spent enough time plugging your business. The fact is, if you are looking to sell this type of property where you walk in and you have to wipe your feet as you leave, Patty specializes in this stuff.
Okay, keep going.
So call Patty. What do we have next? We have a alleged purchaser that's been looking at house for years that phones listing agents and says he wants to look at the house. He's from out of the blue. don't know anything about him, don't know if he has the money, don't know if he has a house to sell, whether he can get the money when he's looking to move in. Is everyone involved in the buying decision going to be present at the showing? So I ask him, do you not have your own agent? You've been looking at houses for 2 years. Do you not have your own agent? Which you should. We've covered that 10 times on this show because they'll represent you. Listing agent represents the sellers. And he says to me, I usually just call the listing agent and have them show me the house. And then if there's any interest, I'll phone my agent and go through it again. What are your thoughts on that time-wasting episode?
I'm just going to keep that short and sweet and simple and say if you're a buyer and this is your plan and you have an agent that is or maybe is not aware of what your game plan is, it actually goes against our rules and regulations. It is clause, if anyone wants me to cite my source, it is 13.8. It states without verbatim, but basically the buyer's agent, where possible, should make every attempt to show that property if they're going to be representing them and writing an offer. So if you're a buyer thinking you're doing your realtor a favor, you're not, because you're causing them to break their own rules that they've agreed to adhere to. So agents need to see the property in order to write an effective condition or agreement of purchase and sale to protect you. You are actually putting yourself at risk and opening up perhaps some risk and liability to your agent if they've not seen it but yet still agreed because it seems so convenient for them to sit at home and write the offer and send it off to you to electronically sign.
Well, the other thing that should be explained to this potential purchaser is that is the buyer's agent job to do that. And let's just say hypothetically, I did show the house to this potential buyer and he is a chatty Cathy. Or what's a male version of a chatty Cathy?
Chatty Charlie, maybe.
He's a chatty Charlie, and he tells me everything there is to know about his life and how he loves this house and he's willing to pay full price and he doesn't need a home inspection, doesn't need a water test or a septic inspection or nothing. He just absolutely loves this home. And then he goes back to his agent, and the agent wants to write an offer, and then he includes a whole bunch of clauses, comes in less than asking price. Well, I'm already armed with a bunch of leverage that I got out of Chatty Charlie's mouth because I don't represent him. I represent the seller, so he's doing himself a disservice because he's sort of talking to the other side at that point, and I'm going to do everything I can in that showing to leverage anything I can leverage for my vendor's interests.
Yes, once it has been made clear that he has his own representation, as a listing agent, you have a fiduciary obligation and responsibility because you have a signed contract agreement to share the information with your seller. But if you're just in a limited dual, well, that's a whole other subject. You're receiving privileged information. You become more of a facilitator. You're not to basically give too much information away on either side, which again, will go into far more detail. But as soon as that buyer ends up, I've got my own representation and I shared a bunch of information with the listing agent thinking that they're a master negotiator. A lot of times, if you're a listing agent and you have a buyer that comes and they want to see the property through you, whether they have or have not disclosed, please be mindful who you represent still, and that you should not be giving anything away with regards to your seller's motivation or circumstances to a buyer to try to facilitate a double-ending sale or anything. Stay in your lane, allow them, because we should be trained as realtors to know what we could and should be able to say and not say in that kind of situation.
And the other thing you're starting to see in the real estate market that's already taken place in a lot of different markets in North America is you're now required to establish your fiduciary or agency relationship with the buyers prior to even meeting them.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So they don't tell you anything thinking that, oh, I told her all this stuff and I didn't know who she represented. And then afterwards, we entered into dual agency or buyer's agency or whatever, right?
Have your own representation if you were a buyer, because the seller has their own representation. and the seller hopefully has been well informed as to their rights as a seller, what the rules are, what a listing agent is going to do to help them facilitate the sale of their property, which includes marketing, which includes negotiations, which includes being that middle person and arranging showings. All this information is already been relayed on and informed to the seller. How informed are you as a buyer if you feel you're going to do this on your own? The seller has already entrusted that home, that property with a realtor, and as part of the list price fees, as it is set up here in Prince Edward Island right now, it is agreed that there is allowed to be representation of the buyer through their own realtor. So use the system, use the services that are there and available to properly protect yourself.
Call your buyer's agent. Getting to Comedy Corner here.
Comedy Corner. Okay.
The use of ChatGPT and other AI is becoming quite commonplace in law, so much so that there was a lawyer that took a test in the States, I believed, that actually got caught using ChatGPT to create or hallucinate, as we call it in the AI world, a court case that never existed, and he used this to base the test or thesis or whatever he was doing, and they found out that the court case that he was citing to reference to didn't exist. So we are starting to see more and more artificial intelligence clauses. I know you're using it all the time, right?
No,
Basically
I'm
doing your job 100%.
No, I am not. I know how to write a good clause. Why don't you quickly cover what a good clause includes, and then we'll do the comedy part.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get back to the subject at hand.
And then I will do it.
What happened to me, which was kind of funny, is I read this long-winded clause, and I thought, oh, this is coming from the broker. This particular real estate brokerage loves writing these long, drawn-out, endless paragraphs that cover a bunch of nonsensical stuff that doesn't have to be in there, but it looks impressive. It's big, it's wordy, and they're probably getting charged by the hour from a law firm. So this particular clause, long, wordy, but when I read it, it referenced to things that don't exist in Canada. But what was even funnier is it had in square brackets, agent's name, insert here.
So they left it in brackets.
So they generated, I asked the agent, I said, who created this clause? Well, I created it in ChatGPT. And I said, well, you might want to read it in the future because, number one, it's written in American English, which isn't that bad. Number two, it was referencing to escrow accounts, which we don't have here. We have trust accounts. But number three, the funniest thing was they left in brackets, insert agent name here. So the clause was basically invalid.
I can't believe they never actually read it. I understand utilizing AI in our business to try to help us do it better, to provide a higher level of customer service to our clients. However, to just copy and paste a clause into a contractual agreement that they clearly did not read, unless they thought the insert agent's name here was part of the clause, but that seems
well, the
ridiculous.
Square brackets were kind of a giveaway. And this actually plays into the next topic, which is this offer was going to go nowhere. It was so bad on so many levels other than just typos, using American rather than the UK English, referencing to escrow accounts that don't exist and inserting agents' names in brackets. But the whole offer was just ridiculous. So I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it have made more sense to talk to the listing agent, which would in turn talk to the sellers, to decide if they're even going to entertain this type of offer? I'll use it for instance, and then you can define what the perfect clause is, because we didn't forget about that.
Yep.
But if you're going to write an offer on a property that doesn't close for a year, do you not think it might be worth some time to discuss this with the vendor first?
And see if that aligns with the vendor's plans.
Right. And what's the other thing that you probably want as a vendor? The longer and longer the close is with reference to the deposit.
Well, the bigger the deposit needs to be.
The longer the closing, in my opinion, the bigger the deposit should be. Because a lot of things can change in a year. They could gamble away that money. They could get into financial stress, whatever. The markets could crash. Maybe they have a bunch of financial instruments that have devaluated.
And make the deposit non-refundable too, Michael, I'd recommend.
I was just about to cover that. And of course, the deposit's worthless unless it's non-refundable. So if someone's going to go out a year and they're looking at say $1 million house, you probably want average down payment in North America is between 5 and 10%, probably closer to 5%.
Of the purchase price.
Of the purchase price.
Yes.
I would probably look at $100,000 down, non-refundable, because I know they're probably not going to walk away from $100,000. They probably would walk away from $1,000. And in PEI, they're notorious for these tiny little deposits that fit within that $2,500 electronic or e-transfer limit that most people have on their bank accounts. You want to cover anything on that before you tell us what the perfect clause looks like?
No, I think you've covered that very well.
And is this definition coming from you or ChatGPT?
This is coming from me. I just know if you are a buyer or if you're a seller, and the buyer's agent missed this, it could work to your advantage. So just be mindful of that. But if you're a buyer and you're wondering, you're trusting your agent, and this is not just Prince Edward Island, this is just Law 101, what makes a good clause? So if you have a pen and paper, I'd be writing this down. If you're expecting to put in a contract agreement, make sure your agent has this. So what is to be done is number 1. What are you asking for? Number 2, who is to do it? So is this the seller's responsibility to do it, or is this the buyer's responsibility to have this completed? Who is to pay for it? So it needs to be very clear. When is it to be done by is number 4. So is this to be done prior to closing? Is this something that there's going to be a holdback and it gets done after closing? So make it clear, when is it to be done by? And number 5, what happens if it's not done? And this is the one part of a good clause that is always missed, because what we're doing as realtors is now leaving this on the lawyer's desk and in their hands to go, okay, so you wrote this great clause where you've got 4 of the main components, but you left out what happens is it not done? Is the contract null and void? Is there going to be a holdback if it's not completed? What if it's not completed to the buyer's satisfaction? This needs to be very clearly outlined and stated. Again, if it's the standard in which you want the work to be completed should be as included as part 1, what is to be done and what is the expected outcome? What are you asking to be done and who's to do it? Is this just the seller going to come in and do a quick MacGyver fix on something? If you're young listening to this, you're probably not going to have a clue what I just said, but just a Mickey Mouse fix? Or do you want a professional to do it, and do you want the receipts submitted to the lawyers so that you can have this as confirmation it was done by a professional? So those are the 5 components. Again, what is to be done, who is to do it, who is to pay for it, when is it to be done by, and what happens if it is not done.
As we said at the beginning of the show, we've hit 0 degrees Celsius. So for you people that don't know the metric system, it's time to join the world. 0 means water will freeze. So what else freezes is heating systems in PEI, which are typically water circulated through radiators that gets the hot water from boiler that's usually oil fired, sometimes propane or electric, but mainly oil. And it was kind of funny. I was in a house there within the last 48 hours that had none of the thermostats were working because all the batteries were dead. And I'm thinking, that's going to cause a bit of an issue, having no heating system, considering it's going to be 0 degrees tomorrow. So, having said that, what do we need to do if we're abandoning our house in the winter and it gets below 0 degrees, Patty? We should Winterize the
Winterize the
house.
house. And what's part of winterizing a house if you are somebody from down south? And this is all foreign to you because it's not something that you've had to typically do, although I know they've got some colder temperatures in the recent years. This is what insulating or winterizing your home looks like up in Canada or Prince Edward Island. So you should be insulating your exposed pipes, whether they're in crawl spaces, attics, basements, to prevent freezing. If you have, because we talked at the very beginning of this episode about mini homes, you want to make sure if there is anything that is underneath or has a skirting, it's well or properly insulated and your pipes are properly insulated. This will stop any bursts. It boasts efficiency within your systems, your heating systems, and your hot water systems. It will lower your bills by making sure that you properly insulate exposed pipes. Keeps your hot lines hot and your cold lines cold.
That would more pertain to heating efficiency and having pipes in a cold basement. Say, for instance, in PEI, you will find the older farm homes with these old stone and clay basements. That really doesn't have anything to do with winterizing, though.
Well,
winterizing would be draining.
Well, we're not to the pipes yet being drained. So you want to drain your pipes if you have a cottage property or you are looking to go somewhere else and you just want to shut your house down for the winter. You will want to call or contact a plumber for the most part, because then you'll know it's done right, to go ahead and flush out your water lines. They put in, an antifreeze?
The do-it-yourselfers, I have found, shouldn't be doing it themselves. Because we've had houses that were completely destroyed because what they did is they drained the water, but they didn't realize that there was still water in pipes that were almost like a V configuration. So they thought all the water was out, but it wasn't. There was still water in the lines, and then the lines would burst. Next thing you know, your ceiling's falling on your head, your walls are collapsing. It's a mess. I've had it happen before. By putting the antifreeze in and having a plumber do it properly, you make sure that the lines aren't filled with air and water, and they will not freeze.
Yeah, so because when the water freezes in your pipes, it expands, and that's what ends up, when it thaws, and that's what ends up creating the ruptured pipes. I've had a home on Prince Edward Island many years ago. They did it themselves, which ended up causing and costing them so much money because their plans were to list the property in the spring. And that plan completely got kiboshed because now they had to call in a service master or first on site we have here on PEI. They had to come in, they had to clean up the water mess, make sure that there wasn't going to be any mold. And a lot of times, because the pipes burst before you get here, because most will wait until the temperatures are a little bit nicer, they're walking in and there is already mold being created and formed inside this home. So you're looking at a very expensive, costly bill to remediate the mess, all because you were concerned with saving a few $100s and properly having it winterized in the first place. Just talk about the materials that you could use, Michael, to winterize the pipes and stuff.
The material. Well, this actually, we're talking two different topics here. Notice the show notes is talking about insulating water lines, which has nothing to do with winterizing a house.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to save this topic to the next episode, and I apologize for the confusion. That's probably why it threw you off track. And that's why Patty was talking about insulated lines. But this was all about winterizing your house, which has nothing to do with insulating the lines and making sure your ceilings and walls don't collapse once they're filled with water that's left in there in the spring.
Yeah, so some other things to do is make sure your waste bins and stuff are all secured or tied or tucked or put away in a porch. Remove all your screens off of the home, because a lot of times they will get damaged if we have high winds and snowbanks that end up building up on the side of your home. So you'll want to make sure that that's done, as well as the plumbing system being winterized. I think that those would be the recommendations. Anything else to add to the winterizing?
They need to follow the Facebook group and the LinkedIn group because there's probably more tips there that you're going to put in within the next week or so because you thought this was a pretty exciting topic.
Yeah, I actually was impressed with the winterizing of a home, and it's not something that we've had. So thanks again for listening to the Michael and Patty Show, otherwise known as MAPS, Prince Edward Island's podcast that helps guide and navigate you through the buying and selling and everything Prince Edward Island. One of the things that I was about to say is we do have a Facebook group, and you had mentioned the LinkedIn, which again is still a project that I have to get to. I've been in extensive training the last 2 months with a trainer from BC who has occupied a lot of my time, but thank you to Doug Thompson. He is an exceptional trainer and so insightful on ways to just improve and better service our clients. However, I will get to that, but if you're looking for a podcast or a group and an added level, perhaps for information, support, information, the Moving to Prince Edward Island, spelt completely out, from the Michael and Patty podcast, has a lot of invaluable information every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until we're caught up because we have over 100 episodes. Will be a summary of every single episode so you know what to look forward to or make sure that it's relevant to you. We have Toolbox Tuesdays, which this whole winterizing your home or cottage is going to be an upcoming Toolbox Tuesday, but there's a lot of great recommendations and suggestions. And please know I don't hold anything back. I do my research, make sure I give you a very detailed toolbox of everything that you should know. I don't give 3 here and next week you're going to get 4 more. You get the full toolbox on that particular subject. And then we have a Thoughtful Thursday, which is just engaging questions. It is an amazing, I am so excited about this Facebook group. I spend a lot of time making sure that I provide value on there. It is not to solicit or, pester you or in any way. It's just an information so you can do your due diligence to be the best informed buyer or seller, or just anyone curious about
A gawker.
About Prince Edward
Could
Island
they
in
be a
general.
gawker?
Sure.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe. Give us some feedback, 5-star rating, comment on YouTube, thumbs up, all that sort of stuff. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.